Hi everyone. I am Camille. I am the head of programs of Uplifters, and I want to thank you everyone for joining me tonight. I will take 1 or 2 minutes to just slowly introduce the organization and what's the topic going to be for tonight, so we give time for others to join us. So Uplifters, and I'm sure like most of you are very familiar with the organization now. We are a nonprofit organization empowering underprivileged communities with online education and peer support. And we especially offer a free online course on money management, personal growth, and mental well-being. So the only thing you need to do if you want to access the course, if you're a migrant domestic worker yourself, is to click send message on our Facebook page to enroll. And I screened the link on the screen so you can have access to it. Hi everyone. So I'm saying some of not like familiar names connecting now. Good evening, Odi. Good evening, Nelly. So Odi and Nelly are two of our most experienced team leaders and mentors supporting the learning journey of our new students. It's nice to see you here. So tonight is the 23rd episode of our Uplift Your Night Facebook Live. And the very first objective of this series is to be together. So you know that Uplifters is first and foremost a community. And of course, we also want to keep learning together and supporting each other. This is very important to us. The topic for tonight is losses and grief amidst COVID-19 pandemic. So some of you may know that October is Mental Health Month, and the theme for this year was mental health in an unequal world. So the crisis is affecting all of us to different degrees, but it is very important to say that the pandemic has been disproportionately impacted migrant domestic workers all around the world. This is unfortunately also the case when it comes to losses and grief. And so, with this new episode of Uplift Your Night, we hope to provide our community with knowledge and support so those in need can grieve as they should be and mitigate the impact of loss in their life. So it will be both about like your own grieving process if you're going through that or had to go through that in the past, but also supporting others. And to have this conversation and to start fostering a dialogue on this very difficult but also very important topic, I'm very happy to have Guleed Dualeh as my guest tonight. So Guleed is one of our guests for the third time now, so we're very grateful to have him again tonight. So Guleed is based in Hong Kong. I'm talking to you from Morocco, where I am now based. And Guleed is the Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Coordinator from Asia Pacific, MHPSS Training and Learning Collaborative of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. So the Hong Kong Red Cross is the National Red Cross Society of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. So like very, very briefly, the mission of this movement is to prevent and alleviate human suffering wherever it may be found, to protect life and health and ensure respect for the human being, and to work for the prevention of disease and for the promotion of health and social welfare. And I wanted to share with you a quote because I found it very interesting that Henri Dunant, who is the founder of the movement, said, "Never to resign oneself, but always to act." And it resonates quite a lot with what we keep saying in Dare to Dream, our online course. It is very important to take action, to start small, but to act now if we want to see changes in our lives. So I'm gonna have a quick check as who is with us tonight. So we already have a few people connected. Mary Grace, hello, watching from Singapore. Dana is here. Doreen Sanchez, Marie saying hi. So we have domestic workers connecting mainly from Hong Kong and Singapore, but we also have team leaders and students based in the Middle East. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce you to Guleed. And again, we're very happy to have you with us, Guleed, tonight.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's always a pleasure meeting you and the crew from Uplifters.
Well, thank you, because I know how this October month, the month of mental health, has been very busy for you, given the work that you do. So we very much appreciate the time that you give to the community.
Happy to advocate. Happy to share.
Great. So I was thinking maybe to start with asking you a very general question, like almost a definition question. When we speak about loss, we often think about the loss of a person or a beloved person, especially. But losses can be diverse and take multiple forms, especially in times of crisis. So I thought that you could maybe start sharing a bit more about what are losses actually, and what are we losing in this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. It's always a broad one as well. First of all, I think what we have to determine and have to know is that loss is inevitable. It's something that we experience in the course of our lives. It's a fact of life. It's a process, and depending on the context, the loss or the losses occurred, they could be temporary, they could be long-lasting, they could even be permanent. So there is a certain degree of occurrence where multiple losses also can happen at one time at once. And losing something meaningful or a beloved person in an unexpected way is particularly difficult to deal with. But losses are normal, and it is something that we not only might have experienced already, but definitely something that we will experience.
I see. So I think it's all about considering it as a normal thing that happens at some point in our lives, and sometimes it's complicated. Sometimes we feel sad or bad about something, but it's sometimes hard to identify it as actually being a loss, because we often have this image of, a loss might be something like absolutely dramatic, but it can be a bit more subtle. Is that what you were saying?
Pretty much. I mean, again, also it can mean different things to different people. Some of the common losses that we have recognized, and something that we can relate to maybe even more, is like physical loss or your physical health, like losing a limb or some of your motor skills. But it can also be psychological loss. You can lose your sense of safety, your sense of trust, your sense of control. We've seen cognitive loss like memory, visual or hearing abilities. There's social loss as well, loss of loved ones or a pet, the loss of a support network. You can lose, there's spiritual loss, like hope or beliefs or values, material loss, financial loss, so many different kinds of losses. But what they all have in common is that they are inevitable, and it is something that is normal to experience.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I think like the loss of social support is something that the community may have experienced because of the social distancing. So at Uplifters, we try to build this online community that can actually remain even if we can't go out of our home as often as we would like. But yeah, it is also something that feels hard and needs to be taken seriously and considered properly.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And even, the language that we use, social distancing, it can be something that really, really highlights the fact that we're not together. It's physical distancing, it's because of the pandemic, we have to keep our physical distance, but we can and should definitely still connect socially as much as we can.
yeah, thank you, Guleed. I think it's very relevant to keep in mind. I will share one of the first comments that we just have from Odi. I'll screen it, but it's quite long, so I'll read it also. So Odie's telling us, I lost my happy job before as my dog Tiger died because of the pandemic. It's not easy to go visit a doctor, plus me and Tiger was alone for 2 years as my employers can't go back to Hong Kong. They were trapped in Japan when Tiger died. So I lost my job. They decided to put Tiger down through euthanasia because they can't go back to Hong Kong because of the pandemic. If there is no pandemic, Tiger won't be put down. It would be still alive, and my happy life with him won't end so soon. I just find myself crying, even if I had no plans. Thank you for your trust, Odie, and thank you for sharing. I think your example, and we're very sorry you had to go through that. I think it's a good example because it's something that wouldn't have happened without this context, and it also shows how an indirect things can go sometimes. If you want to share anything, Guleed, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, Odis, thank you so much for sharing, and really, really sorry to hear about the loss of Tiger. I can only imagine how tough that must have been. You know, COVID-19, we are almost 2 years into this global pandemic, and I think we keep on thinking, when will it end? None of us have probably thought that we were going to stay in it for so long. This pandemic is affecting all of us to different degrees around the globe. It really exposes the world to significant challenges, and plenty of us have been experiencing multiple losses, like the one that Odie shared with us. So while the impacts of the losses, they vary in each situation depending on individual characteristics and context, some commonly shared losses are observed during these times. We are talking about physical health. There's a lot of loss of livelihood or financial security due to losing jobs and major sources of income. Odie shared that also that some of them were trapped in another country, like they didn't plan to stay there for so long. And also this loss of sense of control and stability due to the unpredictability and uncertainty regarding this pandemic and the impacts to our lives. So it's definitely, there are a lot of losses here that have been experienced differently. And again, thank you for sharing, Odie.
Yeah, I think like what we can clearly hear with Odie example and what you just said is there is a snowball effect, right? Sometimes you can lose something that will lead to another loss. That's why there are also multiples. So you just alluded to it very quickly, Guleed, but what are the grief reactions and the impacts it can have on a life? I guess we're all different. I guess it really depends on the context, as you said, but also what is it that we lose, that we lost, and also maybe we're different in terms of how we regulate our emotions. So what are the different typical reactions or like diverse reactions that we could expect?
I think you mentioned it quite well when you started with saying that everybody is different. That is absolutely true. Everybody is different. We grieve differently. We mourn differently. We react differently. So there's no specific one box or like a fact sheet to look through to make sure that you are grieving properly or that you're doing it the right way. There is no right way. There's only your way. Reactions to loss, they generally vary. It depends on different factors. Again, as you mentioned, the context in which the loss is experienced, the nature of the loss, but also which kind of coping mechanisms the person experiencing the loss might already have. When we're talking about grieving, it's common to experience stress, which is a natural defense mechanism, especially when we're faced with challenging experiences. When we're faced with like a major crisis or a really significant loss, the experience can be very overwhelming, and the reactions, they can manifest themselves in very extreme ways, which can impact the health and well-being of an individual. Some of the reactions that are quite common that we see is shock, disbelief and or denial, numbing, not feeling anything, extreme sadness and despair, anger, guilt, hopelessness. The list goes on, but those are just some of the common reactions that we've seen.
And I can imagine like these different feelings that you just mentioned. Sometimes there is not necessarily like, can we, I mean, I don't know, actually, I'm asking the question, like, is there some sort of a pattern that we can see, like with, starting with the shock and then maybe going to denial, and then the anger sometimes comes afterwards, and then is there like a, like a path, a journey to kind of go through until we can find acceptance? Because I guess acceptance is the end goal of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, different people would have different experiences of grief, and processing grief takes time. It really involves learning to accept the loss and the potentially intense emotions that might come with it. But it's also about learning to cope and accept the changes and or the consequence following the loss, and then gradually being able to go on with one's life. The impact of grief and loss, it can really vary as well as the way of handling these moments. Generally, people, they do tend to either avoid or face and address the difficulties. When one avoids, it usually means that you're changing the behavior to stop thinking about or feeling something that causes the stress.
Mm.
For many of us, it might feel easier to just avoid the whole grief experience and just stop thinking about it or feeling about the actual loss. But when this becomes long term as a way of coping, it really is likely to hinder a healthy grieving process, which usually involves confronting extreme emotions, which are natural reactions to loss, and then allowing one to seek support and to make the necessary adjustments to their lives so that you can go on with your life in a healthy manner.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I think it's a tough thing to accept, difficult emotions. But what I hear is that it's kind of a must. Like it's hard to reach acceptance if we don't start with accepting the emotions that are going together with the change, the new situation. I will screen a comment from Herlin, who is also one of our team leaders. She's writing from Singapore, and it will give us a very good transition to the next question that I had. So Herlin is sadly informing us that last year her father passed away because of the pandemic, and she wasn't able to go back to see him. And she says, in her own words, that this was the worst thing that happened in her life. She's also giving us a bit of a context, saying she's the only one helping them, and she also have a university student to take care of, I guess. So yeah, it goes to grieving from long distance, which is one of the topic that Guleed and I wanted to touch on a little bit. So I'll let you comment on that, Guleed.
I mean, first of all, Herlin, yeah. First of all, thank you so much for sharing, and my deepest condolences to your loss. Again, can only imagine how tough it must have been for you, and thank you so much for sharing it in this forum, because relatability in a time like this is also something that really occurs when we're talking about connectedness. In one of the messages that we put forth here in Uplifters, we mentioned that grieving is a unique and individual process that takes time. Many may go through intense emotions and periods of ups and downs as a response to significant losses. The ongoing pandemic, it really has brought along plenty of changes in our lives, including the way that we grieve and mourn, and the way that we're able to physically also grieve and mourn. For example, it causes difficulties for people to spend the last moments in person or have a physical touch for the last time with a beloved one. That's really, really difficult now. Travel restrictions, limited crowd sizes, physical distancing, it might make it difficult, if not even impossible, to partake in typical mourning rituals or procedures, such as funerals and the following wake and the meals, which usually allow the grieving person to express feelings, connect with support, and gradually restore life without decease. So what we're seeing now, which is something that has been going on the last year or so, or since the pandemic essentially started, because again, losses are normal. People have lost in differently throughout the pandemic, the new way to say goodbye has shifted to something like the virtual world, like sharing the last moments with video conferencing or online funerals or online grief support groups, even. Despite these challenges, which is really also allowing and creating the space to grieve and mourn, especially from a long distance. So yeah, so that's what we've seen at this point when it comes to grieving from a long distance. I
Yeah.
would definitely say in terms of these very, like, it's tough times, you know, even though that you are distant, that you are far away physically, because you know you're still there. Give yourself permission to grieve and feel and acknowledge your feeling as valid and the need to go through the pain of loss to truly heal. It's also, again, and I can't reiterate this enough, there is no strict timeline or a set of rules of how to grieve, probably. Your process is yours. Each of us show different grief reactions and with different paces. So try to avoid comparing to other things or to others or to past experiences even. Be patient with yourself and try to find some suitable ways to express your thoughts and feelings. Some may feel comfortable writing things out, like a memory book or a goodbye letter and cards. Some might feel connected, if it's possible, to revisit some old places, something that's very particular to you and the one who has passed, something that has created a memory, or keep gifts or personal items related to the one that has passed. Some, they also like sharing memories with others, laughing, remembering, you know, the joyful times, the different times, the ups and downs. All of these are everything is okay. Just
Yeah.
find the way that suits and helps you go through your tough time.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Guleed. I think it's interesting to see that in the chat there is a lot of peer support taking place at the moment. So, like the online support, like forums that you were mentioning about, is kind of happening now. So I'm happy if this time and space can also be useful for some of you in this very specific process. I will screen two or three more comments, which actually really confirm what you just said, that it's really a personal process. So we have Jasmine. She's writing from Singapore. So she said, I lost my mother 4 months ago. I felt like the whole world fell on me. I've been holding on well mentally and emotionally during this pandemic. But when my mother passed away, I just lost it. I gave up a lot of things. I withdraw socially and just bottle things up. I just shut off from outside world for 2 months. So it also shows like the shock it can be. Like I think Jasmine, what she's saying is that she usually has some coping strategies. Like she knows how to handle stress and like tough emotions. But it seems like sometimes it's just too much. So the loss is really something specific.
Absolutely, Jasmine. Again, also thank you so much for sharing. And I definitely, two things is very important for me to say is your reactions are yours and they're absolutely valid and absolutely normal. And also try to seek out the support, you know, that that might be readily available for you. We'll share about that also going forward in this chat here. And know that it is normal with such a significant loss to feel how you're feeling, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely key to know that you're not alone. You're not
Yes.
alone in your experience. You're not alone in the process. You have people.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine, for sharing. I know how tough these times were to you because we had the occasion to have a quick chat about it. So thank you for your trust in sharing it with us tonight. Odi, who wrote to us about her losing her dog, also says that it's now 8 months. She's still in the process of grieving. And she describes like some trigger, like when I'm seeing a dog or I hear the name tiger, I just burst into tears. I'm 70% with it. But after 8 months, I'm back to being a team leader. So team leaders, again, are volunteering with us and supporting new students in our online courses, and to writing poems. So it goes back to what you were saying. Like, it's really personal, and like it's very important to identify the resources, the activities, the things that would make us feel a little better, a bit lighter. So I'm very happy for you, Odi, that poetry helped you.
It's
But it
amazing.
also shows how long it can take.
It definitely does. And you know, and again, Odis, thank you for sharing your experience and what has worked for you. It definitely instills hope. When we're in it, everything can seem really, really hopeless. But I definitely think that Odie is a great example of showing that, you know, it's never going to be easy, but it will hurt less and be less difficult as time goes. Time does heal, even though it's something that we read on the back of you know, self-help books and like maybe even on cereal packages. But it really does. It takes time, and allow yourself that time.
Yeah. Sharo, so Sharo was one of my students when I facilitated a batch of trainees last month. So I'm very happy to see you here with us, Sharo. I'm very sad to learn that you lost your dad. So she just sent an amendment afterwards. So she was saying that she lost her dad last May this year, and it was the worst thing happened to her life. Every night she was crying, and had nothing to do. It was 1 month of struggles. She didn't know how to cope from it. It's very much painful because of the pandemic. And her sister and her couldn't go home again, this from distance issue. But we need to be strong for ourselves and for our family that need support from us. So I think there is also this dimension of, being a domestic worker here, and like the choice that these women made, and the sacrifices that they do for their family, is also the reason why they can't be with their family in such difficult times. So I think it's maybe something to that might um, that might lead the process to be potentially even harder.
Absolutely. I mean, grieving in itself, and thank you for sharing also your experience that you had here. It is definitely really, really difficult grieving, and then also with the different restrictions that are put on us, which makes it even more important in a time like this to connect. It seems a little bit like a band-aid to have to connect over social media or Facebook or video chat and so on. Make use of everything that is available for you there, but also your surroundings. This is one of the things where, and this I've experienced when I've done the chats with uplifters before. The community is very, very strong here. Not only because a lot of you are from the same countries, like we're all not from Hong Kong, but because the experience that you're having is so unique to your situation. So when you meet one of your peers from your groups here, and they say, I see you and I know how you're feeling, or I know what you're going through. It is really true. And that's something that I can't stress enough. If you do have the capacity and the energy to reach out, definitely try with the support that is there.
Yeah.
Again, the relatability can definitely help in the healing and the helping, and then continuously connect with family back home, and with the specific situation of working as a foreign domestic worker in well, anywhere. If possible, try to strike up a conversation with your employer in terms of, you know, setting a little bit of boundaries or having like an open dialogue if you can. Just if you need a couple of extra days, or if there's like certain things that you don't really feel up to doing, whatever that might be specific to you. If you feel comfortable, try having that conversation with your employer.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Guleed. I think it's good advice. I know, like some of you have healthy relationship with your employer, and this is something that, for some of them, they may be understanding too. So it's a good advice. I just want to say, so Joanita is also sharing that she lost a niece and and an uncle. So we're very, very sorry for your losses, Joanita. And Mary Grace, sorry. is again explaining that it was very difficult for her. So I will just read it out loud. A lot was happening in my life from the previous year, but the most sadness thing was last December, 2020, when my grandmother passed away. I cannot express my feelings that time, as I also cannot go back. She was my favorite granny, and one of the reasons why I'm sacrificing, and couldn't even see her for over 6 years until she's gone. And then my mother got sick when February comes. She what I'm going through. I can't see them. So we are very, very sorry, Mary Grace, for your loss first, and also because it seems like your situation puts you in a situation where you keep struggling. I think what it also shows is sometimes it might be extremely complicated to process the fact that some of the persons for who you made that hard decision to migrate die when you're not there without having you saying goodbye. So I think this is, again, something to process maybe in addition to the loss itself.
Absolutely. It's not easy. Another emotion or a reaction, especially in this time that people experience, is also this sense of guilt. I left, so it is my fault that I'm not able to go over and say goodbye or join the funeral and so on. It's a normal reaction, but try also to, when it is possible, to put a little bit of a perspective on it and just realize what is within your control and what isn't. Being away from home, even far away, is a choice, and it's also a part of life. We do it for different reasons. Tragedy can strike even before COVID as well, where distance might have been a hindrance. But again, connecting with family back home and connecting with your community is definitely pivotal in times like that.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing, Mary Grace.
And that's why I'm again very grateful that Guleed and his team suggested that we go with this topic, because we can see tonight how strong was the need to just create a safe space where people could share. So Jasmine is actually asking a very good question, two very good questions that will help us transition to our next question. So she says, I understand that loss is inevitable and there is no timeline for grieving. My question is, when does grieving from loss become alarming and the person needs professional help? So when do we know it's getting too much to handle, even with time? And is it when the person starts talking about giving up everything or starts harboring suicidal self? So it goes to the question of, how can we support others? Thank you for asking.
Yeah, really good question, by the way. It's a very, very good question. I think, it's everyone is different in terms of how much support they are able to give. Support also, we're talking about grieving and loss, which is different, and it comes in different shapes and sizes. The same goes for support. Support can be just a listening ear and being there. It can be practical support of, helping with the groceries. It can be financial support. It can be spiritual support. There's different kinds of support that we can give. When it starts becoming alarming, of course, if you see that the individual might be hurting themselves, or they might have suicidal ideation, or something that is beyond the scope of where your support is enough, then it might be the time for seeking out professional support where possible. I also want to say that providing the right kind of support at the appropriate time can be helpful in coping with emotions. So giving support usually comes from a good place. You want to help. You see somebody in pain, you see somebody who's struggling, you want to step in and you want to help the individual. But that help that you are offering at that specific point might not be necessarily what this individual might be needing. So they might react in a way where you're thinking, oh, well, I'm a bit taken aback, because, they might get angry with you, or get more upset, or start crying, or whatever that it might be. So trying to suss out a little bit the appropriate time, that can definitely be helpful in coping with individuals, I would say. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's and maybe Guleed, if you want to be sharing one of the service that your organization provide, because sometimes it's not that easy. I mean, like there are these two steps, right? When you feel that you can't do that, the person needs more than just a listening ear, but you're not really sure how to send this person to. So we tried at Uplifters to make it super clear what organizations domestic workers in distress can go to, both in Singapore and Hong Kong. But I guess there is a program in your organization that can be of help in these difficult times.
There is. Thank you for allowing that. So at the Hong Kong Red Cross, at the Psychological Support Service, we have a service called Shall We Talk? The Hong Kong Red Cross launched this psychological support service for anyone who experienced emotional disturbance because of the outbreak. But any kind of emotional disturbance, because of the outbreak, can also be a loss due to the outbreak. So basically, it's for anybody who would like to have a listening ear to talk to. The service is handled by trained volunteers or staff members with professional support from clinical psychologists. Camille will share the information on how to contact it, and the leaflets have also been translated into Tagalog and into Bahasa as well, and we have it in English. The service is for free, it's confidential, and all it takes is either call in or send a message with WhatsApp or on Telegram, or send an email, and then you can book a session for emotional support through Shall We Talk.
Thank you, Guleed. Yeah, so I'm just screening like the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen, and we'll also make sure that we share the information in the comments and again in the group. So back to the comments. So I will screen a few more comments, and then we will slowly wrap up the conversation and say bye-bye to each other. But so before we do that, just wanted to screen Marianne Emilou. So she lost her father a few months after she left home to work here in Hong Kong. So that might have been very tough. She blamed herself for leaving. She thought that he could have lived more if she was still there with him, or things could have been different if she was there to take care of him. So again, this feeling of guilt that you were mentioning before.
Yeah, and so sorry for your loss, Maria. Absolutely. A loss, especially a significant loss, can't be planned. We normally go into what if I had done this, or if I had done this, or if I had waited a little bit. But of course, we can't live our lives like that, because then we're not living our lives to the fullest. It's also a lot of pressure to put on yourself in terms of saying that, the circumstances of even like life expectancy would have been longer should you have been there. These losses, they do happen, and they are a part of life. And your feelings are absolutely valid, but just also acknowledge what is within your scope of control and what isn't.
Yeah, we're always going back to this, like trying to distinguish what you can control and what you can't control, and trying to decrease a bit the sense of regret. So Sammy, she's also saying that she lost her dearest uncle when her niece married 20 days later. She also lost her godmother, and it made her like very, very sad. Summarizing the situation, saying the pandemic has made our life very difficult. That is so true. And yeah, we hope too it will end as soon as possible. Many people are working on it, so yeah, but we need more passions for sure. Like no one would have thought that 2 years afterwards we would still be in it.
No, that is absolutely true, and thank you for sharing also, and again, very sorry for your loss, and all I can do also is of course echo what we have said so far. Allow yourself, give yourself self-compassion in these times here. Connect with what makes sense to you. whether it's community, family back home, things that used to give you joy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm talking about like community again. I'm very happy to read like super positive comments. My lesson at Dare to Dream old version helped me a lot also. So she's thanking her team leader and her classmate. So really, it seems like the community is helping. Ellen Mae says it's a very good topic. It reminds me of the feeling I felt when I lost my grandparents years ago. So yeah, thank you. We're
Actually, and that's a really, really good point that
Ellen Mae.
Ellen May actually raised. And thank you for sharing, Ellen May. Again, losses. We also lost things. Even some of us have had significant losses before the pandemic. We've experienced loss before. What we have to remember is that it's tough, but since we have experienced these things before, we've shown that we do have the capacity to actually gracefully move on and also go into a more, keep living a life that is fulfilling later on. It's never easy, but it doesn't remain as hard as it is in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm not going to read them all, but just for you to know, Guleed, like we have a lot of thank you. The community members seems to very appreciate the topic. Jasmine is saying thank you for the advice, like regarding the questions that she asked. That's pretty helpful. It makes me feel a lot better hearing that my reactions is pretty normal. Yes, they are. Yes, I do have strong social support, and that pulls me out from the dark pit I was in. My employer is the first to notice I wasn't okay. I've been pretending that all okay during working hours, but I cried a lot behind closed doors. After a good talk with my employer, opening my heart and how I really feel, I felt a lot better. She gave me 1 week break away from work. So it really goes back to exactly what you said, Guleed, for those who can, because not all of you can, and I'm pretty much aware of it. But for those who feel can, it's good to open up and share what the situation is with your employers. And I think it's also like if I can say it's also in your own interest regarding work, because if you start losing your concentration or if it's getting harder to execute some tasks without having the employers understanding why, it can also harm the trust and the relationship. So it's very important as far as you can, as much as you can, to be transparent about what you're going through.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing. I saw you pulled one up. Sorry.
No, I will just take a few more and then I think we'll wrap up. I'm very mindful of you time in Hong Kong and Singapore. I know it's already late at night. So Mary Grace is saying, trying to keep going, spending time alone and release all the tears and just let go of the sadness feelings helps me a lot. So yes, it's really letting it go. I shift my struggling to keeping myself busy, continue sharing a motivation to support community so that I can help those I need, special struggling like me. Being positive also helped me go through. Yeah. So like I guess there is a thin balance to find where you want to be giving space to your emotions to express, but at the same time positive thinking at some point when it's timely can also help.
Absolutely. Remember, there's no specific book or like timeline or anything. The process is yours. Your process is absolutely legit. And once you do have the capacity to seek out, what kind of support is there, what is it that you might be needing, are you comfortable verbalizing that? Then those are the steps that you take. Know that you're not alone. Know that your feelings are valid and that they are normal, and know that there is support out there for you. And for the ones, now that we're talking about it, and I can see it, we have the Shall We Talk service. It is anonymous. It is for free. You can call and you can book a session, and then you can allow yourself that space, make yourself a priority, and have that space to share a little bit about how you're feeling and get a little bit of feedback and some tips and some tools on what you can do in terms of coping.
Yeah. Thank you, Guleed. So I think I'm going to stop reading comment.
Yeah, if I
Yeah,
can just
say
say
again.
also quickly, I'm always so amazed by the group from Uplifters because whenever I've been here, the topics have always been quite heavy. It's always about mental health and it's about COVID-19 and so on. And I'm always so amazed by the amount of sharing and the connectedness and the support that is in the Uplifters group. So I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me again and giving me insight into some of the realities that you guys are experiencing. But we're all in this together. We're still talking about it so much later, and so yeah, it brings me comfort that I'm also not alone.
Thank you, Guleed. Thank you. And as I said at the very beginning, thank you for your time. And I also want to say to our community that sometimes it's not an easy thing for us to address like the right topics or like the topics that would be the most relevant to you. So you know how to reach out to us. Like we're, very accessible. So you just, send us messages on topics that you feel would need to be covered, and we would be very happy to do so. Um, so we're gonna slowly come to the end of it. I don't know, Guleed, if there is maybe a last piece of advice that you want to share, maybe a few concluding words, and then we'll do very briefly evening ritual together, just sharing a little bit of joy. So we uplift a bit everyone when we end the broadcast.
Not so much. I think that we highlighted a lot. Again, use the service that is there, the Shall We Talk service. It is a free, it is confidential, it is in English, it is by trained professionals. So please don't hesitate to reach out to the available support that is there. We all need it from time to time, but it can be really difficult to figure out where to go. Here is a link to something that you can utilize, and I highly encourage you all to do so if that is what you feel you need. Remember, you're not alone. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to grieve or to mourn or to go through the motions. We're all trying our best, and that's the best that we can do.
Thank you. That's a very, very comforting conclusion. Is there anything you want to share with us about what made you happy today? Like 1, 2, or 3 little things that you appreciated, that you're grateful for?
I think I was grateful for a picture that my sister sent me of my nephew who is growing. They live in France, and I'm in Hong Kong, so I'm also very far away. So that definitely gave me a little more pep in my step after I got that the picture. And also, well-being. I'm taking a couple of days off, so I'm having a long weekend. That's also something that makes me very happy because I'm quite tired. It's been an intense month, World Mental Health Month, but it's been a great month, and so I'm concluding with this event with Uplifters with a big smile on my face. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy you will have a break in the coming days. I think it's going to be a very well-deserved break. As for me, I think what made me very happy tonight is, well, this live. I think again, like I'm repeating myself, but I think the topic was very relevant. Thank you for your contribution, Guleed, and thank you for your reactions, dear community members. It makes it very interactive, and it makes it very to the point, not being ourselves from the community. Um, I'm also grateful because my daughter's had some health issues lately, and she's finally feeling better, and I can see her smiling, laughing, playing again, and it helps. So grateful for that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So I think it's time to say bye-bye. Thank you again, everyone. Take care. For those who are still struggling with grief, take your time, be kind to yourself, and reach out for support if you feel you need it, and connect with those with who you feel happy, I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a nice end of the evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.